we're going to be discussing how essential oils work, apple maggots in Canada, and UC Davis has a Zika Symposium, all on this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek Podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek Podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business. Hey, welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez. I hope you're having a pestacular Monday. I am having a blast here today with discussing with you some very, very exciting news. Over the weekend, it was my birthday. I turned 46. And I quickly became aware that I'm 4 years away from turning 50. And that has had some profound implications on my life. I'm reflecting a lot more than I used to on what I have coming up ahead and what I'm doing and how I invest my time. And, I just tend to look at things a little bit more, seriously than I used to. And I think it's because I'm just getting old. But I want to thank all the people that wished me a happy birthday over on Facebook and called me and left me messages, and I want to thank you for that. I got a really exciting podcast. I hope you're having like a really, really, really cool Monday. You had a great weekend. You were relaxed, and you're getting ready. You're getting ready to get this thing rolling again. But I wanted to thank a bunch of people that liked us on Facebook and Twitter and are following us. And I got Josh Culver, the Bugman, owner at the Bugman in Lubberton, Texas. Thank you so much for liking the podcast, for following us. I hope it does help you. It helps you grow your business, and it helps you do things better, and at least you get some new ideas, and maybe you'll get entertained. So thank you for that. Also, Pest Management Inc. at PestMGMT on Twitter. Pest Control in Texas also is following us on Twitter. So thank you to you both for following us. We greatly, greatly appreciate that. And also, if you are listening to the podcast and you'd like to contribute, maybe in an audio form, or you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, or you got something to contribute or comment about the podcast, your call is welcome. 707-395-7378 is the phone number to call. You can leave a recorded message 24 hours a day anywhere from the continental U.S. I don't know if it'll be free from Europe, but currently that call is good from anywhere in the U.S. There's no charges on that. Tech tip. I wanted to, if you use a backpack sprayer, or you use maybe a 1 gallon sprayer or a 2 gallon compressed air sprayer for outside, for perimeter, maybe for some lawn, but you find there are tall areas above you that you don't reach, and you've got to get underneath there and spray that, like eaves, or maybe you're spraying the top around gutters for mosquitoes or bugs that might be in there, and you can't reach it. Or you get underneath it and you're getting soaked from the product. Well, if you own a Solo backpack, or you can replace your wand with a Solo wand, they make great extension units for this. They make a small 48-inch, because normally it comes, I think, with a 20-inch. You can get a 48-inch extension. You can get a 60-inch extension, and then you can get a telescopic that goes from 4 feet to 8 feet extension. And this is a carbon graphite type of a polycarbon fiber. It's very strong, very light, and you can get with your sprayer now, you can just extend it and walk away and not have it all fall on you. Or, if you're doing eaves or whatever around a property, or you just simply have to spray a top of a small tree that maybe, you're already, by the time you get your wand, and you got your hand in the air, you got about 7 feet already above the ground. By adding this, you can reach almost 12 feet. extension. With this type of little extension, you just screw it on and take the old one off, just screw it right on, and it's really, really, really quick. There's not a whole lot to it. I got some links to all the accessories for Solo Sprayer, because they make even a curved tip that you can use it, like if you want to spray in a gutter around an area you can't reach it from that you want it, and it has a curved tip, you can even adapt that to it. So there's a lot of great accessories that are available for Solo, and just simply by, exchanging your wand from the one you have for that backpack, you can do it. It's great. It also, on the SEO, remember to get your NAP right. And this is not about sleeping. This is about your name, address, and phone number. This is the most important thing for local SEO. It's that your NAP is right on all directories. But also the one that's commonly ignored is on your own website, that you don't have a NAP on your website. And it's very important that you either put that using either Yoast Local. If you don't, you can just simply put it in one of the widgets area if you're using WordPress, and get it on your footer or get it on your sidebar or somewhere to have your name, address, and phone number as a text in there, not just on your graphics, but as a text. And that is going to help with local SEO for your city. Yeah, and that's a great little thing we discovered, that getting it on there really does help. In the book of the week, this book I love. I've mentioned it before in the podcast, and it's one of those, probably going to be one of those top 10 business books that I've read in my life. And it's called Start With Why: How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action, by Simon Sinek. It has tons of marketing and understanding analytics and very vital information of Start With Why. And it helps you understand how to get to tipping points and how to get market penetration. It's really a phenomenal book. I highly recommend this book. You can use our link, audibletrial.com/pestgeek, in there, or just press the, just click the little button there to get, to log on to get your free 30-day trial. But this is one of those phenomenal books that I think it's probably going to be a classic and in business. And I just really love this book. So take a look at it. Start With Why. This is one of those things that why I've succeeded. I didn't understand it. I was doing it intuitively, and a lot of you do that intuitively. But that I always would ask why about everything that I'm doing. And I would ask everybody why and just exasperate everybody. But it's one of those important traits in growing and in growing people and growing yourself, is to constantly be asking why, when most people are just asking how and what. And I think that is, I'll tell you, it's a phenomenal book. Get the book if you can. Read it or listen to it, but you can get our free trial, and it helps out the podcast. In the past alerts, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency has issued a revised directive by phytosanitary requirements to prevent the introduction and spread of apple maggot. It's a really big problem up there. And there's a link if you are in Canada, and if you're not anywhere in Canada, but you're dealing with apple maggots, probably on the West Coast, you can get some great tips from this. If you've got people that maybe have some small apple trees or something, and you're looking to help them out with the pest control on that, it's a great tool. See, it's not always about agriculture. I mean, I got clients that have all kinds of fruit trees, and they want us to manage them. And we really, really have to know what we're doing, because a lot of the products that are available for agriculture are not available for ornamental landscapes. And a lot of the things you can do in organics, in ornamental, in agriculture, you can't use in landscapes and in fruit trees. And you have to really know what you're doing. A lot of this information helps you, so you can maybe get an additional business, revenue that you can by taking care of people's fruit trees, and all the way from pruning to proper fertilizing to proper disease management and things like that. And a lot of the stuff is really preventative, not as much as chemical as required. So there's, that kind of link. I believe if you understand that, then you can start dealing with some of those issues. Also in the news, UC Davis, out of California, had a Zika virus public awareness symposium. The great thing is they recorded it on video, and I got a link to the video blog on that, and it's about 2 hours and 39 minutes long. But check out that the newest information they have, and they're starting to take this very seriously in California, because they're at a potential risk too for international travel. So take a look at that and see what's going on, and share it. Share it with your clients. YouTube it, and I'm sorry, not YouTube it, but Facebook it, and share that content, because it's vitally important that your customers stay up, and we live in a world where more people are entertained and they watch the news, and sometimes you just don't get that kind of information. You won't get that kind of information from the news. So I think it's vital. We're going to be sharing it down here with all of our clients. But I wanted to talk to you about essential oils and how they work. And here's what most people's attitude in the pest control business is to essential oils. It's crap. It doesn't work. That's the simple answer. Well, most people that have that attitude, is because they've seen, snake oil salesmen come and go. And when you read a blog about, how, a particular oil like, cedar oil, which seems to be the most popular oil, to control, insects, doesn't either work, or they didn't work the way that they expected it to work. And I didn't arrive at this conclusion of how essential oils work by, reading a blog and going out and spraying yards and figuring out that, it might not work. I did it through a lot of study about what's available on these. And most of the stuff, remember that I have a little different view, in pest control, because I come from the L&O side of pest control, where 95% of my business, the monetary business that we do, is in ornamental, lawn and ornamental. The GHP portion that we actually charge for is mainly when we just get just GHP clients. It's about 5% of our business right now. It's growing. It's also the commercial part of our business, and that's growing too. But for the majority of my clients, we're doing their GHP for free, because they never experience indoor pest problems. And when they do, if you sign a deal with us where you give us your complete landscape business, your lawn, your ornamentals, your palms, your trees, we basically do the GHP for free. And that's our one of our competitive advantages, is that we don't charge extra for the GHP. If you ever have a GHP problem inside, we handle it for free. So it's not a monetary moneymaker for us unless we just get customers that want GHP. So how did we come up with all of these, whether essential oils work or not? Well, let me explain to you how the essential oils work to control both insects and arachnids. And it works. These natural pesticides have more than one compound in them. When you think of using either cedar oil, you think of the active ingredient cedrol, which is what makes the cedar oil to control pests, is cedrol. But cedar oil by itself is not going to control a large portion of insects. I mean, you're going to get mosquito control for 7 days to a week, maybe a month, depending on weather and irrigation and all that. But it's not going to control everything. So you got to get yourself out of that mind frame that you're using an essential oil and you're using one oil, and you're going to replace it with your bifenthrin or whatever synthetic that you're using. Just automatically replace it with that one oil, and it's going to get you control, because, the label said it would control all these insects. That's not the case, and that's not going to happen. You can get that out of your mind. How they work is they have different modes of action. When you compare a bifenthrin or a Termidor that has one mode of action, and it's either a sodium channel blocker or sodium channel inhibitor and things like that, that's how it kills the insect. That's it. Okay. Some of them have repellency effects, but that's it. Essential oils, based on, I have probably about, probably more than 30 studies that I'm reading through and read through and studying specific essential oils on specific insects. And that's the key, to understand how that's going to work. And they work as an adulticide. I mean, they will kill on contact. And some of them do it through the same modes. They have a type of mode of action that kills the insect depending on the type of oil and depending on the type of insect. So it will kill same as a neurotoxin to a lot of insects. The same way that synthetic pesticides will work on contact. So on contact, if I'm going to use a botanical pyrethroid and I'm going to use a natural product, you're going to get basically the same type of result. You're going to get a quick knockdown. You're going to get some residual, depending on the type of oil you're using. And you're going to get some repellency. And if you're using it as a crack and crevice, the same way for flushing or anything that you're doing with a pyrethrin or a pyrethroid, you're going to get that same result. So you can do that. You can switch it out in that case for an essential oil, and your clients are going to be much happier. Now, it's always the hardest thing to ever do is convince a client that what you're doing is going to be just as effective. And basically, we've overcome that. We're so past that. I mean, every time I do a conference, every time I do a CEU class, inevitably I get 2 or 3 people shaking their head and saying, my client. And I ask them, why are you shaking your hand? And they say, well, my customer's never going to accept that. Well, that's because you've never actually tried. And, it's like the guy who says, if I don't bring my B&G inside, my client tells me I didn't do a good pest control service. Well, that's because that's what you've got them accustomed to. So you're going to have to, mindsets are going to change. Attitudes are going to change. Why? Because the market is going to change. And I saw this 10 years ago. I didn't see it this week. And we basically got rid of it. It took me 2 years to get rid of the B&G, 2 years to get rid of the baseboard spray to all my clients. And now to the point where we tell our clients up front, we don't baseboard spray. So if that's what you're looking for, we don't do that. But let me tell you what we do. And then I explain what I do and how I do it. And they look at our reviews. They look at, we give them referrals and they talk to this client. Look, we've got in this particular neighborhood, I've got 37 clients. Go talk to them. Here's the list. You come to your own conclusions if it works or not. And most of the time they don't even call. They just say, okay, I believe you. And they move forward. But that's going to be the biggest challenge, is trying to convince people that this stuff works. Second of all, what people do with essential oils is they buy a spray bottle and they start spraying their baseboard sprays like pumping action. And then 2 days later, the ant trail is back. Not really going to work well for that. Okay. Not yet. It's not at a point where a lot of these products, you've got to be very, very specific. But let me tell you, if you focus on the exterior of the home and how it works, these essential, the right mix, it's about getting the right blend of essential oils. Not one essential oil, but a blend. And what we've done over the last 5 years is developed our own proprietary blend that is working for us. Okay. And how it works is it discourages, also, it's an anti-feeding. It discourages feeding. Okay. It's a feeding deterrent. It's either a feeding deterrent action or it has anti-feeding properties where literally the insect stops feeding. They don't feed anymore. The other one, it deters them from feeding in that area that you applied it. They also have ovicidal properties. I've put about 4 very, very detailed, very, very extensive articles on here. I'm probably going to put more before the end of the day and add them to it. So you might want to go back and check those links later in time, because I'm going to add some more. I've got 20 something studies on this that I've done over the last couple of years. And we've come to understand that it kills the eggs. Okay. It also, in certain insects, it has an oviposition deterrent, meaning it'll deter the insect from depositing eggs or laying eggs in those sites. If the site is a lawn, then he's not going to deposit his eggs. He feels very uncomfortable because of the product depositing the eggs. It has an egg hatching inhibitor. It almost works as an IGR too. It has IGR properties. It works great as a repellent. Most of natural oils, the main thing is it repels. And by repelling it from the property, they leave. They actually do leave. It has a progeny production inhibitor, which works, doesn't allow any breeding actually on the site. So they're not encouraged to breed there. It like I said, it has neurotoxins that kills the insects by different modes of action on different insects. Different insects have different essential oils are going to have different active ingredients in them that cause the death. It's also larvicidal. Okay. And here's what I had to, because since I do come from that L&O side, I went in and got my horticultural certification. And, I really enjoy that business. And I came across when I was taking, a lot of the entomology courses, things that people don't consider. And what you do is I want to use a natural pesticide. You show up to the distributor, look, I got these three, I got this one, and this one. It works for killing mosquitoes and this and that and the other, and you try it. And then you come back and you say, nah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Why? Well, one of the things that you have to really put in order first, and this is just general pest control. Everybody thinks chemistry first. You need to think chemistry last. The first thing you need to really do and focus on is biology, insect biology. You need to understand is that a chewing insect or is that a sucking insect? What order is it in? Is it Coleoptera, Neuroptera, Hemiptera? What order is it in? Because then you have to go and pull studies to see on that order. See if it works on one insect. And the one insect that I'm trying to treat, even though that insect is in another part of the country, the study was done in India. And the study was done in India on one specific insect. It just happened to be a beetle, a Coleoptera. And I'm trying to deal with beetles here. It's in the same order. It doesn't matter that the insect is over there and this one's over here. It's in the same order. And if it works on that insect, and the study shows that it works on that insect, then you need to do the testing here and see how it works. You can't just say, I tried it, it doesn't work. What we did is we do the same protocols that you would have to do to control that insect. With a synthetic, we apply it now to the natural, and then we observe. And let me tell you how we do this. So if you're dealing with ants and you're dealing with Coleoptera or beetles or other type of sucking, chewing insects like whiteflies, are you looking at the relationship that there is? If there's honeydew on that property, are you dealing with the honeydew to control the ants? Are you looking at the biology, or are you just simply hoping that you can just come in with a spray it, and that's it, you're going to get control? That doesn't work with even general household pests, insecticides that are on the market. People fail with that constantly. They're getting callbacks constantly because they're looking at just the insecticide. So what the studies do is the studies exposes you to what results they got with a specific insect with maybe 5, 6, 10, 20. I've got studies where they've tried 54 different essential oils, and there's a record of what worked best and why. So now you're looking at how does it work? Well, here's how we came, and I started getting into natural oils. I didn't get into it yesterday. You got to go all the way back to September of 2011. And what happened in September of 2011? We had been just doing lawn and ornamental, and progressively at that point I've gotten to where we're very minimalized in the amount of chemical we use in the landscape by improving cultural practices, educating the customer on irrigation, mowing, trimming, and all that. We got a lot of control with our processes. And based on the types of insects that we were getting, we were doing a lot of systemic root drench treatments. And I'm always pushing that envelope saying reduction, reduction, reduction. How less can we use? 1, because it lowers our cost. 2, because it lowers exposure to the applicator. And 3, because it lowers exposure to the homeowner. And 3rd, because, it protects beneficials. And 4, because it's just much better for the planet, groundwater, and things like that. We evaluate all those things as how can we reduce the impact on all these things to become a greener company? Well, I didn't become a green company until last year, where we actually declared ourselves to be a green company. It took me 9 years of research, development, training, trial, error to come up with this. This isn't something I came up with overnight. When we were a landscape company, and then I got into pest control, and I started doing the pest control, my instructions were, you put 8 ounces of this in a 100-gallon tank, you put 8 ounces of a fungicide, you put 12 ounces of this organophosphate, and then you add 20-20-20, and you spray everything down with that. 4 chemicals in 1 tank, spray everything down. It didn't matter. After a year of being in the business and doing that, I started questioning everything. Why? Because I start with why. And I question everything. And I started going to CEU classes after my first year, because I had to, because I got to get my certifications. And I started getting exposed to things. Luckily, I got exposed mostly to one particular type of, one particular person, Austin Frischman. And every year I would go to his class, because every year he had something new to talk about, something exciting, something that was different from what everybody else was talking about. And the reasoning is that he wasn't a manufacturer's rep. You see, he's been doing this longer than I've been alive. So I became a very good student of Austin Frischman and the things he wrote and the things he read. And I started reading more and more. The problem is I would come back and I would talk to the owner of the company and say, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. Doesn't work. That doesn't work. This doesn't work. And it's like, why would you tell me? Oh, the only reason I was sent to thase classes is because I had to get my CEUs. That's it. There was no interest in really changing anything, being better, because he was still doing things. It was baseboard, spray and pray type of mentality. And I started questioning everything. But I've learned that I'm not going to go and question the boss and keep, harping on things. I just trained, learned, kept it all to myself. And then I says, as soon as I get my 3 years, I'm going to go start my own company. Well, I did. I mean, luckily, the sad part of this, he was a good man. And it wasn't that he just wasn't interested in this stuff. It didn't work. That was his attitude. He was one of these old guys that had already been set in his ways, wasn't going to change. And I'm not in the business of changing everybody. I'm in the business of making money, not changing everything everybody does. So I wasn't going to go an uphill battle and try to change somebody. Then, so I immediately made plans that as soon as I qualified for my testing, I was going to go in on my own. And I did. In 2009, I went out on my own. And immediately, but in about 2 years into this, I already was talking to my customers about how there's a better way. Because there was no real training. There was no oversight. It wasn't like, these are the policies. These are the procedures. Basically is go out there and get it done, and that nobody complains, and you just do the work. This is how you spray. So I started talking to my clients 2 years into this. Listen, there's a better way of doing this. And I promise you, and if it doesn't work, I'll put you back on the same program you were. And I was changing and reducing to the point where 2 years in, by the 3rd year, I wasn't doing any more baseboard spraying. They were happy. They were ecstatic with the fact that I didn't have to. But it took me that long to change their mind. So I do feel you when you're saying my customers will never go for that. No, your customers will never go for that until you make the change. Once you start making the changes, they will go along. You start proving it work, they will go along. And I was doing, landscape. We got our big break when I started getting commercial work, and we got a big housing development that was failing. They had ficus, hundreds and hundreds of feet of ficus that nobody could control. This was the ficus whitefly, and they couldn't get control. And I had a couple of customers in there in that development that were on the board and said, well, he's getting control of all my ficus. Why are we spending time with these people? We've had them for years. We've switched. Nobody's getting control. Let's give this guy a chance. They gave me a chance. And they had mainly ficus, tons of palm trees that were full of whitefly and very deficient. And it didn't take me 10 weeks to get this development. It took me a year of working really hard to get this thing up to where it looked pretty. The ficus were all grown back in. I had restored them. They were down to twigs, and they thought they were going to have to replace them all. I said, no, we'll get them back. I had done extensive work with that where I could restore ficus that were completely destroyed. And so I went ahead and I started doing, I said, look, we're going to do a trial. You have a lake right there. So these shrubs surrounded a lake. I said, I feel very uncomfortable spraying a lot of stuff near water. And I started doing natural. I didn't tell them what I was doing. I never tell my customers what we were doing, because if we failed, then we could quickly move back to another product if it wasn't working. And we could fix, nobody would know. In other words, we would destroy all evidence that we ever tried. That was the motto. So I said, let's go with, the natural product. I did enough research to say, okay, this is showing promise. Let's go with this. And we used the same protocol. So on the whitefly, we still went ahead with synthetic treatment, systemic treatments. On the palm trees, we were doing systemic treatment because I didn't want to spray 20 feet in the air anyway. And we went with systemics in that. And in the lawn, we were still doing the normal lawn program. But on these particular shrubs, which we had several thousand, it's kind of like 6,000 to 8,000 square feet of these shrubs, which are cocoa plum. I said, let's deal with a difficult pest that it's causing damage, but they don't know it. See, they didn't know that they were infested with lobate scale because they couldn't see too much of the damage. The shrubs didn't look pretty, but they weren't falling apart. I says, if we can get control with lobate scale, which is very, very difficult, lac lobate scale is a very hard scale to get control of. If we can get control with this, we can probably get control with anything else. And that's the way I look at it. I take the hardest insect that we think we have to deal with, and we start doing. So in September, we started spraying those. Now, this was a 4-month service. They didn't want, because they didn't have the budget to do bi-monthly and quarterly. They went and said, no, it has to be this is all the money we have. Alec, you need to make it work with this money. I said, well, the only way I can make it work is like this. I know I can get control of insects with the ficus, no problem. The palms, no problem. The lawn is going to be an issue. You have to get your cultural practice perfect in order to make this work. It took me 6 months of going there on a monthly basis, talking to the president's son and saying, when the landscapers come, you got to make sure they raise their blade. They were scalping the lawn, making it last 2 weeks. Raise the blade. It's not going to grow that much faster if you raise the blade. You're still going to be able to do it every 2 weeks. Raise the blade. No, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't raise the, I can't get you weed control. I can't get you disease control with you scalping the lawn. So it was getting that cultural practice right, perfect, was going to be the difference between doing a bi-monthly service or doing a 4-month service. 6 months. Finally, they started raising their blade after 6 months of working with these people. The lawns improved to the point that we don't spray a fungicide on that lawn ever. I've only applied 1 year where we applied one time. We applied a fungicide. We do apply an insecticide every time we go, and we apply fertilizer. And weed control is spot treated. We don't have to do complete lawn. And it's about 80 to 90% weed free. It's not perfect, but they don't want perfect, and they're not paying for perfect. They're paying for really good, and they're getting much better than they were when they had the other 2 companies that were there before with the same type of service. So we took a chance and we said, let's do the low bait scale. We followed protocols. We got to break the life cycle. So in order to break the life cycle, we got to come here on a weekly basis, spray this for about a month, and then we're going to give it a break and see what happens. Sure enough, we came in, we sprayed, we waited about 2 months and started inspecting. And the way I inspect is I start touching, feeling, see if the low bait scale falls off. If it easily falls off, then it's dead. Sure enough, So about 6 months of doing this, by the second time we did the service, we had to reduce low bait scale maybe by 70%. To the point where there is today, after 2011 to today, which is 2016, we're almost 5 years into this. There's no low bait scale on those plants, and we're spraying them every 4 months. Why? Because of all the different activities that were happening together. They're not allowing them to feed, not allowing them to breed, killing them on contact, breaking the life cycle. We took to that point after 2 years, after about a year of doing that. We said it's working. It works like a charm. We implemented it to all of our landscapes. Anywhere we had cocoa plum. We have a lot of commercial properties that use cocoa plum. We have low bait scale under control on our properties with a spray service of our natural product. Can't be done. Everybody tells me it can't be done. You can't control it. It's too hard to control. We've been doing it. We've been doing it for 5 years. So then we started looking and say, okay, what else? It controls low bait. It's going to do it on other shrubs, other types of scale insects. And it does. To the point where we hardly spray. We don't spray any synthetic pesticide on shrubs. Zero. Here's what we also noticed. We said, you know what? We started getting calls from other commercial, like parks. We do a city here, and we get calls from their parks. They go, can you check out this palm tree? Can you check out this shrub? Something is wrong. Our guys can't control it. Can you figure it out? And we were seeing a bunch of algae leaf spot on the cocoa plum. And we looked at all our properties. And we said, you know what? We don't have any algae leaf spot on any of our cocoa plum anywhere, and we're not doing a fungicide on them. We discovered that the antifungal properties of continuously spraying these natural products was controlling fungus. So we started looking at other plants with tip blight and leaf blight and things like that, and were we getting control? And we didn't, to the point that, let me tell you how much fungicide we apply per route. We use Heritage as our main fungicide. 1 bottle of 1 pound of Heritage will last 1 entire year on a truck. And we spot treat. We hardly ever spot treat. Very rare, because we work on our cultural practice. That's how we reduce pesticide. That's how we're competitive. That's how we say, look, we're not going to put a product unless it's absolutely necessary. We found that this is working. So we keep the pest off the tree. We reduce the amount of fertilizer that's required because the plants are not getting injured all the time from insect and disease. Fertilizer drapes dropped to the point that we're allowed to use 6 pounds of fertilizer per year per 1,000 on lawns. We use 2. 1/3 of the fertilizer that's allowed and required in southern Florida on lawns and trees and shrubs. We're using 1/3. We found also now that, hey, we started getting calls on Sri Lanka weevil on cocoa plum. We didn't have any Sri Lankan weevil. People said you can't control Sri Lankan weevil. It's very difficult because it's in the soil and you can't control it with insecticide. And I had one property that they had a guy out there every 2 months spraying with bifenthrin, could not control Sri Lankan weevil on shrubs. This was on cherry hedges, to Brazilian cherry. We sprayed it once with our product. We went back a month later and said, I want to see if they're coming back after a month. We had all new growth on that shrub. None of it was eaten. We had no Sri Lankan weevil on that shrub whatsoever. We said, what the heck happened? We waited 2 months for the next spray. On the next spray, no Sri Lankan weevil. They left. Why? The repellency. They weren't allowed to deposit their eggs. They weren't allowed to breed. They weren't allowed to hang around there because it repels them. It had like 5 modes of action on these insects. And now this cherry hedge is full after 3 months. No new bites. So people say it can't be done. It can't be done. No, it can't be done if you're going to take this attitude that you're just going to go buy a product and you're going to apply it and it's going to work. There's a lot of work that goes into it. There's a lot of research that goes into it. There's a lot of trial that goes into it. There's a lot of error that goes into it. And if you want to go that route, you have to be willing to do that. And that's, so people say, what is your advantage of selling a franchise? Well, that's our advantage, that we spent 10 years of research and development on all this, and we didn't just do this overnight, and we're going to save you 10 years of research and development by doing it. When we declared ourselves, when I decided by serendipity to shut down our landscape operations, to shut down all that, which was 50% of our income, the pest control company really carried the other businesses. And we shut it down. I said, because I was looking to become a franchise the year that I started my landscape business, and that I started in 2009, that I started the pest control company. And through a series of unfortunate events, that got halted, and I couldn't do that. That was my original intent. I said, I don't want to grow through the traditional method. Franchising is how I want to grow, because I already had enough experience with it. And I couldn't actually do it. And we had to completely rebrand and rename the company if we were going to go with this natural approach, with the least toxicity, with the largest amount of control, with the least amount of chemical. We had to literally change the name of the company if we were going to do this, because with the old name, it wasn't representative of that, even though we've been doing it for 9 years. 8 years now, we were doing it. You see? So that was part of our strategy, that we have to go through the expense of rebranding, renaming, and all this if we're going to do this, because nobody knew we were doing it. We were just doing it, and we were getting results, but we weren't telling people what we were doing. We weren't, saying out there, look at the results we're getting, look at this. We weren't broadcasting, and now we are. Now that's part of our marketing, our strategy. It took me that long to be able to do that. And so I am challenging you to rethink your process, rethink your methods, rethink what you're doing. If it's not working and you're hitting a wall, essential oils is not the solution to everything. I wouldn't use it for German cockroach control. That's not the point. I wouldn't use it if I had a nesting problem with American cockroach. I would still use bait. But we do use it to the tune of about 50% of the product we use in ornamental landscapes now. Fungal control, natural fungal control, natural insect control, and we're doing it on tick now, where we started getting calls and said, let's do it on tick because it's working. Now we tested it, and now we're doing tick control. It's all natural. It works much better than the synthetic. We don't have any resistance problems. We were getting resistance problems with synthetics and neonic, both neonicotinoids and pyrethroids. We were starting to get resistance to ticks, and we were using it at the highest applicable rate. So guys, it is possible. It is possible to do this. And those of you that say it can't be done, until you've actually done the research, until you've actually done the trials, and until you've actually done it, you can't say it doesn't work. Because I got 5 years and extensive documentation on what can be, and it is working. It does work. So guys, hey, this broadcast is a blast for me to do. I enjoy helping people do things better. I enjoy helping people succeed. I enjoy helping people just be the best that they can be. That's one of my greatest joys in life, is whether I did it as a youth minister, where I did it as an adult minister, where I've done it as a corporate executive, as a sales manager. My goal is to make my people the best they can be. So they can be the sharpest knife, in the shed. That's what I strive for. And that's what you should be striving for in your business. Don't hold any knowledge back from your employees. Share with them what they need to do, and they need to know everything they need to know for them to be the best that they can be. I thank you, and until next time, you have a great one.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.